Good afternoon. Welcome to We Believe Digital. This is our news break show, Wednesday afternoons at 5 o'clock. This show comes on 3 times a week, Tuesdays at 1:30, Wednesdays at 5 o'clock, and on Fridays at 2 p.m. We're glad you're joining us today. My name is Chris Young, and my co-host is the one and only Mr. Socrates Garrett. How are you, sir?
I'm doing extremely well, Chris. How are you?
Never had it so good. I mean, here we are in downtown Jackson, topping out at 61 degrees today. Looks like it'll be topping out in the low 70s tomorrow and the low 80s on Friday. So how about that?
That's beautiful.
We had
beautiful.
A little chill, long enough for all the ladies to turn on the heat. And now it's going to warm.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, just the week before, the air conditioner was on. It was 72 degrees in here, freezing to me.
Yeah.
And then when we get a little chill, a little cool spell, then everybody wants to turn the heat on.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I think it's the American way that we have become a soft nation.
Got to be soft and comfortable all the time.
Soft and comfortable all the time.
Yeah. How are you going to grow when you're soft all the time?
And how are you going to fight the war when the war comes?
And how's that little seed when that seed germinates? And
yeah,
you think that it's comfortable coming up through the ground?
No,
it's
got to fight its way through
it's
there.
fighting for that sunlight.
It's got to fight for it. And so I think we've lost a lot, Chris.
We got to talk to these ladies. We'll get it started right here on Livingston Road. We'll have to talk to these ladies, and we'll get it started. But, we got a whole bunch of shows, a whole bunch of topics today, Mr. Garrett. But, I always want to put in a word about the studio itself. Our call-in line here is 1-800-492-5186. We're striving to be a full-fledged media company here. We have videographers. We're doing commercials. We recently did a political commercial, I think for the first time. It's airing on our show. You see it when we take a break today. So we do advertising for folks. We shoot commercials, go out in the community to different events. And of course, all sorts of different topics for podcast shows and stuff. And we really want you to be part of this. The We Believe just isn't going to be We Believe without your engagement. And so we need you to help us grow. Tell us the things you're interested in. We're working on a system now where we're going to have, you're really going to be able to plan out, sort of your preferences for news and entertainment and sports and all sorts of different topics, and then be able to, consume that on your schedule, on demand, when you'd like it to be, all centered right here in these We Believe digital studios. So we're working on expanding that now, looking at different platforms, maybe taking a little look at TikTok to add to, Roku TV and Facebook and YouTube, and our own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. We send out notifications for our shows on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter. And we really want to, and of course we partner closely with the Mississippi Link newspaper that's celebrating 29 years of operation this month. And that's a newspaper that you founded, Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, I have a long history of starting businesses. Mm-hmm. Some of them do well, some of them operate as nonprofits. Even though it's not chartered as a nonprofit, it just is non-profitable.
Okay.
And some of them don't make it at all. But the Mississippi Link started out as the Missing Link and came from a magazine called Today's Mississippi, Tomorrow South, which came from a magazine called Today's Mississippi. And so it kind of evolved from Today's Mississippi to Today's Mississippi, Tomorrow South, to the Missing Link, to the Mississippi Link. And I'm glad to see that it's viable and doing well, and it's under the leadership of the more than capable publisher and owner, Jackie Hampton, who has done some remarkable good things with that paper. She and I went to a meeting in Birmingham, I believe it was. There was an organization called SAPA, the Southeastern Publishers Association, that had been defunct for several years. And you know me, I like to stir things up, and I tried to bring that organization back into functionality, in which I did. And from there, there were two organizations, the National Newspaper Association and SAPA, which was the Southeastern region. And so I left the Mississippi Link when we were part of SAPA. Mm-hmm. We had been denied interest into National Newspaper Association by my competitor at the time and my fraternity brother, who is now deceased, Charles Tisdale, the publisher of the Jackson Advocate. And so we were denied admittance into that organization. And then shortly thereafter, I left the Mississippi Link, and Miss Hampton took it over and moved it not only from SAPA, but inside of the National Newspaper Association to become a board member of NNPA at the highest level.
Right.
And so that's a story. That's a story indeed. What a journey.
She's a work. I mean, she just never stops. And certainly, congratulations to the Mississippi Link. 29 years. You know, I was on the phone with State Representative Bo Brown this morning. I told him that I was calling him from Jackie's office, and I said, "She really something." Representative Brown, you know, she keeping me under the gun all the time. He said, "Let me tell you something about Jackie Hampton." He said, "You know, she resigned from elementary school when she found out that they had recess."
Oh, wow. Well, she didn't play at all.
Hard worker, no play. No. But, Mr. Garrett, we got a lot, you know, if we start at the national, you know, the governor's race is going. You got this governor's race in Georgia, Kemp versus Stacey Abrams. And then you got the big Senate race in Florida. You know, Val Demings is challenging Marco Rubio, and all over the news. And you know what the top topics at these debates that they're having is crime and gun control. And certainly, you know, we know a little something about that around here. They also talking about the economy quite a bit and about abortion. So I don't know, is that a bellwether to, you know, what people are going to be voting on here in Mississippi in just 3 weeks?
Well, it's certainly going to be part of the discussion. Mm-hmm. But Mississippi has a different focus and a different viewpoint from the bottom. Mm-hmm. So when you're at the bottom, you have to talk about basic things. Basic, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
Basic things. How do we provide food?
Yeah.
And shelter. And clothing. You have to be able to provide those things before you can say that we want a good quality education, or we want a good quality of life, or we want to be in parity with the rest of America in terms of standard of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. You know, there's another story I looked at today that really I wanted to bring out, and this lady by the name of Anna Mae Wong, 1920s, starting in the 20s, movie star. She got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960. She is now the first Asian to be on a U.S. coin, a quarter that's going to be coming out. First Asian face on a U.S. quarter. And then, of course, you know what that made me think of. So I look back. Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington, first African-American featured on the D.C. quarter in 2009. So each of them, essentially 100 years after they started in their professions, end up being recognized.
Wow.
100 years after the fact.
Does it take that long?
Apparently, when you're Asian or African American, it takes that long. It takes that long.
Well, I'm glad they made it. I'm glad they were recognized. It's nothing more important than being recognized by your peers.
Yes.
Now, I mean, other recognition comes and goes, but someone who's walked your walk, when they recognize you, then you really take that seriously.
Well, Stevie Wonder immortalized Duke Ellington, in,
Yeah.
you know, in his, well, his just earth-shattering album. I mean, God, I was 13, 14 years old. You know, Songs in the Key of Life, one of the most amazing albums of all time.
Yeah.
Immortalized Duke.
Yeah. Yeah. Big band, the years of the big
That's
band.
right. Jazz piano.
Yep.
Student, we got still clicking on this first segment, Mr. Garrett. You know that we heard about the Biden administration and this student loan forgiveness, and a lot of people got a lot of kind of feelings about that one way or another. Maybe $10,000, maybe under certain circumstances, $20,000 of student loan forgiveness. Well, you know, the application portal for the forgiveness was launched by the Department of Education just last Friday, and over the weekend had 8 million people submit applications for student loan forgiveness. But already the certain group, I believe it's Brown County taxpayers in Wisconsin, have petitioned the Supreme Court of the United States for relief. They say that President Biden can't do that, that you know, that comes up against the Congress having the spending authority.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to see how that turns out. A lot of people counting on that.
Oh, it just makes good sense. I mean, if you can't educate your population, one of the things that we have here in Mississippi is a issue with workforce development.
Yes.
You know, we got all this space and all this land, but we don't really have skilled people. And that's why we don't get the folk from Silicon Valley. That's why we don't get the technology area. And so, because we don't have an educated workforce. Now, we got a right to work laws, so if you're looking for cheap labor like Nissan or Continental, then we're very attractive to you. But if you are looking for, you know, on the technology age and the information age, then Mississippi is not so attractive to you.
It's interesting, too, because, you know, I was listening to that lieutenant governor a couple of weeks ago, you know, talking about, you know, we build ships for the Navy, we test rockets to the moon, we build automobiles, we got the hottest agriculture, you know, in the United States, and yet the people that rank say that the Mississippi workforce in Mississippi is the lowest, is it either education or skill level, the overall workforce, and not that motivated. So it's interesting to have those two things clash, you know?
Well, I don't see really any clash at all. I see Mississippi being the poorest state in the nation. And so we don't have a viable economy. We don't build cars. We don't build ships to the magnitude that it moves the state from the bottom.
Right.
You know, and so when you have an economic engine that actually lifts the state, then you can start to say we're making some movement. You know, breaking the inertial to free yourself from the bottom takes a tremendous amount of strength and push.
So that place, the Stennis aeronautical place down there at the Gulf Coast, that's not enough.
No, clearly not enough. It's not even a good start. It's one of these deals where we had senators that were high-ranking from Mississippi for years in the days
Like
of
Trent Lott,
Senator Thad Cochran, Eastland, Stennis. I mean, they were there forever. And so they were able to move some largesse to some parts of Mississippi. But the economic benefit to the state didn't seem to follow. Because then Boeing from Seattle still were building the ships.
right?
And the technology and all of the implementation and the instruments and all of those things were still being imported. And so we have Beach Aerospace here, a little company here in Richland, I believe. We used to be Beach. It might be called something else now. That supplies the parts and maintenance for airplane jets and hydraulic motors and things like that. But not nearly enough of that.
So until we see something that starts to lift all boats,
yeah,
it's just not enough.
Right. Well, it didn't even lift the privileged boats.
Yeah.
It wasn't even enough to do that. And so it just takes a tremendous amount of effort. And that just tells you how far behind we are in this state. And we don't have to be, but that tells you what the challenge is.
The mentality.
Because while we have some things moving, we still rank last.
Yeah, in just about every category. We got about a minute left, Mr. Garrett. The Mississippi River. Last night they measured the Mississippi River at 10 feet below its normal place. One reporter, Deborah something, was saying that 92% of USA agriculture exports flow through the big river. And it's down so far now. They got the Army Corps in there dredging different hot spots. You got the Coast Guard shifting buoys around to keep the optimal channels open. And you got these operators that I didn't realize they did these strings of up to 40 barges in a row. I didn't realize that was a thing. It's a thing. And now they're light loading the barges down to about no more than 20 at a time. And so maybe it's time for a rain dance because that Mississippi River is looking dismal right now.
Well, yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to skip out now for a break and let you meet Mason and also view the political candidate that chose to advertise with We Believe Digital, and also that Mississippi Link celebrating its 29th anniversary.
Let's read and learn together. Meet Mason. Written by Sherry Tate, illustrated by David. Mason is a young, inspired learner. Walk with him as he uses his 5 senses to explore the world around him. Your young one can learn to identify shapes, numbers, letters, and more with Meet Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
My name is Wendy Wilson White. I'm a candidate for Hinds County Circuit Court Judge District 2. I was born here and I stayed here. I'm a graduate of Provine High School, Tougaloo College, and Mississippi College School of Law. I've been practicing law here in Jackson and Hinds County since 2001. I have 21 years of trial and courtroom experience, and for the past 8 years, I've been prosecuting crime. I'm running for Circuit Court Judge because I want to redefine justice. We don't deserve to feel unsafe on the streets of Jackson and Hinds County, and you don't deserve to see your families and loved ones killed. We deserve to have a judicial system we can all believe in, and you deserve to have a judge who will hold people accountable. People who live with mental illness deserve fair treatment from our judicial system. We need to educate our children about crime and how they will be held responsible for their actions. We deserve to see our children grow old. They should not be defendants or victims of crime at such early ages. You deserve a judge who is fair and impartial, experienced, and dedicated to the places you and I call home. I want to be the difference our city, county, and court deserve. On November 8th, I need your vote. Please vote Wendy Wilson White, www. Hinds County Circuit Court Judge, District 2.
The Mississippi Link, an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
And welcome back to Newsbreak. We're glad you're joining us. We're just picking up on some more topics. You know, Governor Reeves got a letter a couple days ago from Benny Thompson and Carolyn Maloney. Benny Thompson in his capacity as chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security, and Carolyn Maloney, chairwoman of the Committee on Oversight and Reform. And they sent a letter to Governor Reeves telling him about their concern about the way he's spending money and not spending money on the Jackson water crisis. It was a 7-page letter, Mr. Garrett. I got it on my desk. It's a powerful letter, and they want a response from him, forthwith, very shortly. I believe it's by October 31st. They expect answers from him. They allege that the system used to provide funding to Jackson's is burdensome. It's got an extra layer of regulation involved. The formula that they use to come up with the disbursement of funds is not fair and equitable, and that there's been decades long. And they point out how Reeves himself, a decade ago, there's news reports of him talking about going out of his way to make sure that Jackson doesn't get any money. So, it's interesting when you're sitting there holding a letter from the House Oversight Committee directly to the governor of this state about Jackson's water crisis, especially in light of President Biden declaring it a federal emergency.
Well, it's just unthinkable that you would have to have a congressional hearing on how Mississippi spends federal dollars. That really decries what's wrong with Mississippi and why it's last. You cannot, withhold funding from your capital city because its population is 85% African American. And so the governor is misguided to make a statement that, that he's happy not to be in Jackson, or that he is not going to fund Jackson, and that the leadership in Jackson is incompetent. And all of those kinds of remarks just go a long way in setting us back. And so while the congressman felt that was a requirement, I'm sure that was created because of the dispute between the governor and the mayor of this city in terms of who is actually running the drinking water plant in Jackson, which was recently, crippled to the point that we couldn't deliver drinking water to all of our citizens. But who is in fact responsible for fixing the problem? And if it is the city that's responsible, where are they going to get the funds from?
Right.
And even if the federal government sends funds to Mississippi, then it's suspect as to whether those funds will actually get to Jackson. And that gave rise to the need for this letter.
Yes.
And that the governor's going to now have to respond. And so, Chris, I think we're putting a little pressure in the right places. I'm beginning to see some things that give me hope that sunshine and sunlight will cause us to do things differently. I noticed for the first time that the African American Black Caucus held a hearing on how were spent.
The TANF monies,
That's
yes.
TANF money was
Yesterday.
spent. That's the first time I can recall them
First
having
hearing.
done something like that.
First hearing that anybody's done in
Yeah.
the legislature.
Yeah, and so now, which is evident that they want to police themselves. Long overdue. Way beyond the start date that they should have had. And then you watch that the legislator issued a subpoena
To the mayor.
to the mayor to come before the House of Representatives to talk about crime.
When
in
everybody
the
in
city.
town knows he's been sick, he got laryngitis.
Well, yeah, maybe he's sick and got laryngitis, but the fact that they have the power to subpoena the mayor
Yeah.
to come before them to talk about crime is something that they should have done a long time ago. If you're absolutely concerned
Right.
about what's going on in Jackson,
Right.
then you demonstrate that in the funding that Jackson receives from the legislature. Okay, so first, call me in, tell me your concern, ask me how you're going to help, then ask me what's it going to cost, and then say, well, we're going to appropriate the dollars to get that done.
Right.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't trust one another.
No.
And for
no.
good reason.
No. And switching back to the water for a minute, just 2 hours, 2 o'clock this afternoon, Jackson issued its own RFP for a water systems manager for 1 year. Because the governor tried to act independently to extend the Hemp Hill contract out. And so the mayor issued his own RFP.
The governor did. He didn't try. He awarded the contract to Hemp Hill Construction Company to manage the water plant.
Right.
And the problem with that is that in his selection of Hemp Hill to do that, he had no emphasis in terms of minority participation and what the impact of all this ought to be on Jacksonians, and how will this help build an economic base in Jackson so that the government won't have to send money.
Yeah.
And so, and if you don't have the competent skill level that you think is required, joint ventures and mentoring programs are the way that you develop it. And so at some point, you acquire it.
He's blind to all that.
He's blind to all of that.
Yeah. He's not unaware, but he's blind to it.
Well, explain.
Well, I'm just saying, I think he knows better. I mean, I think it's willful. I think it's, on his part. I think he's intentionally taking these actions to omit people. I think he knows that it's supposed to be done differently. I mean, I think he's got enough intellect where I think he knows the difference between right and wrong, but he just chooses wrong over and over and over and over again.
And so help me understand why an individual would do that.
Well, it's racism, it's oppression, it's discrimination. It's just a basic disregard for the basic human value of every single life, no matter what color they are.
And so I normally try to find the benefit.
Yes, you do.
I mean, what benefit would the governor have for excluding this part of the population? How does it improve Mississippi?
It doesn't improve Mississippi, but it's what's that word? Pacify. But it pacifies the base.
Wow. And the base keeps us last.
Ignorant. What a friend of mine up in Virginia used to say, double dumb. Ignorant of being ignorant.
Well, we're going to have effective leadership, Chris. And whether it's white or black or green or polka dot, but someone that's got to have a vision on how they move the needle and how they move Mississippi forward and how we move Jackson forward. Now, we give Maynard Jackson credit, the mayor of Atlanta, for moving the African-American community into the economics of that city. And today, people are moving and flocking to
Thriving.
Atlanta
Yeah.
And so we know the model works.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. You know, as an African American business person with years and years of experience in running wastewater treatment plants and running dewatering facilities and hauling alum sludge from the O.B. Curtis water plant, who sold the membrane systems to the O.B. Water Curtis plant, you would think that my phone would be ringing from this governor and says, look, we're going to want you to be on our team.
Right.
As we deal with these issues and these problems in Mississippi. I have not gotten that call.
No calls. No calls. On yesterday's show, spent a lot of time talking about this policing going on, and you know, because Tyree Jones, the sheriff of Hinds County, and James Davis, the chief of police of Jackson Police Department, been talking. It seemed like on a very regular basis. They're losing people left and right to the Capitol Complex Improvement District Police Department. You know, they're offering them a $45,000 for a qualified police officer starting salary with the Capitol Police. You know, Sheriff Jones, it's not even $30,000. So what do you think they're going to do? He had 3 people leave in one day last week.
Yeah.
And they're worried about crime here. And so they've carved out this 8.7 square mile Capitol Complex Improvement District, and they're staffing it up. But they're sucking policing resources from the existing infrastructure of law enforcement to do that. And they don't seem to have a problem with that either.
Well, it's a lack of vision. When we in the business community team with someone,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if the state is going to team with the city in policing the city,
Mm-hmm.
if they're going to team with the city to do that,
Yeah.
then the first thing that you do in the teaming agreement is indicating there that I will not solicit any of your key people, your staff. None of those people can come work for me. That's standard business practice. You know, you can't come in and take my key people and take my staff and then decry that I'm incompetent and incapable of solving the crime problem.
So this is
You're
evidence.
making it worse.
Yeah, it's evidence they don't have any intention of teaming. They just want to take care of their little area.
Well, I think it's a greater motive than their little area. I think Jackson is a garden spot, Chris. Yeah. I think that it is the most prime real estate in the entire state of Mississippi.
And ripe for takeover.
So I see all of these moves as moves against the city in order to say we first have to declare you insane before I can put you in Whitfield.
Right.
You know, I just can't take you over there and say, you know, I want to put you in the crazy house.
Yeah.
I have to first declare you're not capable of handling your affairs. Now, once I get that designation on you, Chris,
much easier.
I can just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what you see going on here.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. Along those lines with crime, I always take a look at that C.J. LeMaster, who works reporter for WLBT. He created this homicide tracker that you can see on the web, and I mean really compared day to day from one year to the next. So I know you're aware, and our viewers are aware, that over the last 10 days, 10 or 11 days, there's been a rash of homicides, a real spike in the last couple weeks, if you will, and so I just decided to take a look at that so we could give it right to the viewers. So we're at 111 right now, and that puts us exactly 11 below where we were 365 days ago. So and we were trending lower, but now with this spike, now, you know, things are getting back closer to the way it was last year. as you know, was 154 for the year, setting the national per capita record for homicides.
Well, yeah, and the trend's going to continue. There's an issue here. There's a root cause here that
Nobody wants to look at.
That wants to look at.
Yeah.
No one is putting it on the table, in terms of why are we experiencing this crime and this violence in our city. And the question should be asked to America, because it's not only happening in Jackson, Mississippi, it's happening in Baltimore, and it's happening in Mobile. And so there's something here that we have to take a look at, Chris, and see, what's causing it. Right. It's just like if you got a spike in cancer deaths in a community, you can't just say we're going to prevent cancer by treating it.
Look at the cause.
You got to go and find the cause.
Yeah.
Sometimes we find it in industrial wastelands, and we find chemicals that shouldn't be in our water and things of that nature. But until you find the root cause, you cannot curtail nor cure the problem. And you can't lock everybody up, and you can't police your way out of it.
Right.
You just can't do it.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad commentary. We're starting to run out of time, Mr. Garrett. But you mentioned those TANF hearings yesterday, and I just wanted to share with the viewers, the numbers. So in 2016, when all this started, 2016 to 2000, as far as we know, when all this started, it could be much more. But in 2016, out of 11,700 applicants for TANF monies, Mississippi approved 167.
The poorest state in the nation.
1.5% approval rate. 1.5%. 3 years later, in 2019, for every 100 families in poverty, only 4 received that cash assistance, or 4%. And then in 2021, the data was displayed yesterday at this hearing. 9 out of 10 who applied for cash assistance were rejected. And cash assistance in Mississippi is capped at $260 a month for a family of 3.
We got problems, Chris.
I don't know how far you go with $260 a month for a family of 3.
You don't go far.
We thank you for tuning in. I'm going to look for a positive story to add to the mix for Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Take good care out there and stay safe.